You're listening to the Popoto Pub Final Fantasy XIV podcast with your host, Popo Jagaimo.
Well, lolly ho, everyone. Welcome to the 10th episode. It's hard to believe to say that we are at 10 episodes now. The 10th episode of the Popoto Pub Final Fantasy XIV podcast. I'm here with my 10th guest, PvP extraordinaire, Brian Ricardo from Final Fantasy XIV and Zeppela video fame, which is where I heard of him from. And
Hello.
Thanks so much for being here tonight, Brian.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here and talk about PvP again.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we'll be able to talk a little bit more about more than just PvP. Like part of the thing I like to do is like get kind of behind the scenes with like all the different content creators in Final Fantasy XIV and really just get to understand like you and your journey like into 14 and in games in general and into content creation too. But obviously you're a PvPer. You're a highly ranked PvPer. I think last I saw you were 25th in Crystalline Conflict in Crystal.
Yeah, but I haven't been climbing since then. So like I'm like number 90 right now. But this, I can just try and climb in the future.
I'm stuck in gold. So I as much as I've been doing it, I'm still stuck in gold, and I think it's because I have ADD with like which class I want to play, and I think I need to just focus in on one.
Definitely helps.
But yeah, so let's talk about you before we jump into 6.1 Crystalline Conflict and PvP and all that.
Yeah.
How did you get introduced to 14? Had you played other MMOs? Did you play like other PvP games? Like how did you get into 14 and what was that journey like?
Yeah, so I was a Final Fantasy XI player, so the transition was pretty smooth and easy. I played Final Fantasy XI for like 10 years, and then like the game was starting to like get a little old and like people stopped playing, and then I moved into 14 with one of my real life friends.
Gotcha. So your real life friend got you into it. So yeah. Were you always a PvPer back? I don't know. Did 11 have PvP?
Okay, so funny story. Final Fantasy 11 did have PvP, but it was kind of just like how 14 PvP started in the beginning, where it's just like very niche. Mostly JP players liked it, NA players barely liked it. So, but kind of like mirrored history there. Like in 11, I used to try and encourage people to play PvP, and that's what happened for me in 14 too. Always encouraging people to try PvP. Yeah.
Gotcha. So it was pretty niche back then as well.
Yeah.
So 14, was it, what drew you to 14 aside from your friend? Was it like the story? Was it the gameplay? Was it just the Final Fantasy franchise?
Yeah, I would say it's the franchise because I love Final Fantasy, the entire franchise. I played 7 when I was super young, and I went to 8, 9, 10, and I played I went back and played 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So like I always enjoyed the franchise. The only reason why I didn't go to 14 right away when it came out, like 1.0, is because I was just so in love with 11 still. But my friend convinced me to like try 14, and here we are.
Yeah. That's a tough switch, I imagine. And it's something like I, as a WoW player for a long time, I really feared because everyone talked about like WoW 2. And I'm like, how would restarting in a completely new game, like what would that feel like leaving behind your old characters? And it's gotta be tough. But I've heard that there's still an 11 scene. Do you still go back and like check in on your old characters and stuff?
Yeah. They do free login like a couple times a year, and that's when I just log into my characters, say hi, maybe do some story, because they actually do add story in the game still.
Really?
Yeah, it's called, I forgot what the name is. Voracious Resurgence. It's like a new storyline, and so I go in and do that once in a while when they do the free login. And it's usually fun to go in like once in a couple months.
Yeah, it's pretty fascinating. I didn't realize that they were still. I knew that they were still kind of updating and maintaining the game, but I didn't realize that they were actively adding new story, which is really, I think, encouraging for if 14 ever decides. I know we've got 10 more years at least of 14. Hopefully,
even more. Honestly, if 11 is still going like this, I think 14 is gonna go on even longer.
Yeah. Do you think that they'll eventually release like a Final Fantasy, I don't know, what, 18, something like that? That's another MMO eventually.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be sad to say goodbye to Eorzea. I really fallen in love with the world and everything, and it's one of those worlds. It's like you don't want to give it up, but I imagine you probably feel the same way about the 11 world.
Well, so like the big part of why I play MMOs is with like community based. Like I like playing with friends, and even at 14, I like streaming it. So I think I could give it up for another MMO eventually, but not anytime soon.
Gotcha. So what got you into like content creation for 14? Was it Twitch? Was it YouTube? Like what inspired you to start creating in this space?
So before I started streaming 14, I used to stream Overwatch and Street Fighter. Those are my main two games. I was, you start off you're super small. I just started doing that in general for fun. I felt like I was pretty decent at the game, so I just wanted to like showcase my gameplay basically. But then I learned that I really just enjoyed like talking to people and meeting new people and stuff like that. So that's how I started. Eventually, I did decide to stream 14, but not the raids. I started to stream like Frontlines and Feast, and because I found that to be more fun for me, so that's why I started streaming it, and people liked it, and that's how I just like started like streaming PvP as a thing on Twitch for 14.
Gotcha. So funny enough, Street Fighter was the first video game tournament I ever won. It was in a
Ooh.
Walmart in like 1991. And I played Blanca, and no one could beat me doing the electric, charge the whole time.
Oh my god!
And I won like $25 and instantly spent it on some weird action figures or something that weren't even part of a proper franchise. So,
Nice.
so which Street Fighter were you playing?
Oh, this is the era of Street Fighter V.
Okay.
So this is still the current one.
Yeah. Do you still dabble in Street Fighter? Do you compete in Street Fighter?
So a little bit. I'm not super good at it. I'm like a gold rank player. Actually, I have like my fight stick right next to me.
Oh, you're legit. You go all the way with a fight stick.
Yeah, I'm a real fighting game player. I'm a competitive person. I'm actually going to Evo this year.
Nice.
Yeah, the fighting game tournament.
So are you competing in Evo or just watching? Awesome.
Yeah, I'm competing. Not in Street Fighter though. I'm competing in Grand Blue Fantasy Versus and maybe Guilty Gear Strive.
Gotcha. I'm terrible at Guilty Gear. I tried. I'm a big fighting game enthusiast too. So when I saw that on your profile, I was like, oh, cool. Like we have something to talk about there
Nice.
too. I'd love to see like a 14 fighting game mode. I feel like that could be fun. Like a weird, I don't know how good it would be, but it would feel like it would be fun. But I'm a big, I liked Street Fighter for a long time. I kind of fell off around Street Fighter 4. Really big Mortal Kombat and Injustice fan. And I love, what's the Fighter Z, DBZ Fighter Z. I love that game.
Fighter?
Yeah, Fighter. Yeah, that one's great. So those are my main ones. I'm terrible at like the BlazBlue and the Guilty Gear stuff. I don't know why.
The anime fighters.
Yeah.
They're so much different. Yeah, I agree. Mortal Kombat, I played 9. Like I loved 9. Did you play 9?
Yes. Yep.
9 was a great one, and 11's the current one, which I play. What was the other one you mentioned?
Injustice, which the other NetherRealm game.
Yeah, I played Injustice the first one. I never played the second one though.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. So yeah, so that's cool. I mean, it sounds like your journey into content creation is a bit like mine. I just kind of, at first when I was doing podcasting, I just enjoyed, talking about the game. Like I was a WoW podcaster for a long period of time, and I just enjoyed talking about the game, and it, became a community. I got to meet new people. But I did it with my best friend, and I was trying I was trying to get him like into podcasting again. And it's been about, I don't want to say, maybe about 7 years or so since we did our last podcast. And I kept texting him. I jokingly would text him this picture of me like looking like Heisenberg from Breaking Bad that just said his name, "We need to cook," or "We need to cast" every time, like how Jesse, "We need to cook" from that. And it never got him to come back. And eventually I was like, I really miss the like conversations and miss podcasting and talking with new people. So like maybe I'll just try to do this on my own with guests. And it's been a great journey. I've met a lot of great people so far, and I'm excited to be here today with you to talk PvP and everything else. We'll probably talk lore a little bit later, but since PvP is your bread and butter, I guess let's just jump right into it. What are your overall thoughts on Crystalline Conflict now that it's out?
So I think it's pretty fun, and I noticed like the majority of the community base do find it to be fun. It can always use work, but that's anything, right? It's just came out. They still need to do some stuff for balance, and I think that one of the biggest complaints right now is, is not moderated super perfectly. Like people get away with like cheating and scripting, and even like a little bit of win trading comes out. But other than that, it's super fun. I enjoy it a lot. Like I could still play like 10 hours straight.
Yeah, as can
Still.
I. Yeah. Yeah, as can I. Until I get, too frustrated because I keep seeing my rank fall back, into the dregs of the bottom of gold. And I'm like, what am I doing wrong here? But at the beginning, that's all I did. I didn't touch the MSQ. I didn't touch anything week 1. All I wanted to do was Crystalline Conflict. And I'm still kind of that way.
I still haven't done the 6.1 MSQ yet.
Wow.
And I want to do. Today was supposed to be the day, but I went out to the park for a long time, and then I'm kidding.
Gotcha. Have you done well, I guess you if you haven't done 6 MSQ, you haven't done Aglaya yet either.
Yeah, no, I have not. I heard it's great though.
Yeah, it's a great one too. So compare like Crystalline Conflict to Feast. So Feast, from the best way that I can kind of understand what Feast was like, it was a bit like Warcraft arenas, if you're familiar at least with like the concept of that, like small teams combating each other in arena space, like LOS pillars and stuff, and the goal was just to wipe out the other team basically, right? And so how do you feel about Crystalline Conflict in comparison as like a replacement for Feast? And do you think that like Feast has a place ever, again in Final Fantasy, or do you think that they're just done with it?
Well, I would say Crystalline Conflict is an arena too. It's like 5v5. It's a little bit bigger, but I would still consider it an arena gameplay. Big differences is that, it's 4v4 versus 5v5. And Crystalline Conflict is just way more fast paced. Like things are happening so fast, while Feast was more like executing properly. Like you'll see someone and then you have to like execute your burst with your team at the exact same time. With Crystalline Conflict, you don't really have to do that. You just like tunnel someone and they probably will eventually die. So the big differences would be that Feast required a little bit more coordination, and Crystalline Conflict's a little bit more go with the flow type play style. I find both to be super fun, but I do know that some Feast players don't really like Crystal Conflict because it's so fast. But I like it though.
Gotcha. And it's objective based, right? So compared to Feast, where it's like kill is the objective, and this is more about pushing a payload or pushing the crystal.
True. It does both lead to like you do have to kill in both modes. But
of course, yeah.
True that, like, it's a push the crystal to win, and Feast was kill someone, get their points, and then that's how you win.
Gotcha. So was it timed? I'm sorry, I'm like completely ignorant when it comes to Feast. Was Feast timed and you could gather points, for kills over time? Kind of like kill confirmed in Call of Duty or something like that?
Yeah, it's exactly like that. So you defeat the opponent, they drop half their medals, their points, and you pick them up. And if your team got like 600, you win. But most matches came down to timing out, which was 6 minutes or 7.
Okay. That's interesting. That's actually very different than what I thought Feast was like. I thought it was, like 4v4, everyone has one life, and once the team is gone, they're gone.
It wasn't deathmatch. We did have deathmatch in 14 though. That was the fold. That was
really?
That was like 2.x.
Okay. Way before my time in like when I joined in late Stormblood. So
yeah.
So so you played the fold then? How did that work back? I mean, did you enjoy playing that back then? And
Mhm.
if you enjoyed it, like, why don't you think it's still around?
It was fun. It's just the way the game changed. So like
Hmm.
the deathmatch format wasn't super balanced because so back then we had our own hot bars. It was the same as PvE and PvP. So you know how you know PvE has so many buttons. PvP had the same exact buttons. So it was really off balance. Like certain things worked in PvE well, some things worked in PvP well. But the biggest problem was that resurrection in a death match didn't work.
Hmm.
Summoner was super strong because they can res people mid match, and it's a lot of little things like that. And eventually they changed the game to have PVE and PvP hotbars separate, and that pretty much forced the fold to become obsolete,
Gotcha.
basically.
Gotcha. Do you think so? Like talking a little bit about like the PvP skill changes, which before the show I think we were alluding to. Like to me, that's the secret sauce that made all of 6.1 work in terms of PvP is the simplification of the skills in PvP, the kind of I want to say a little bit of homogenization with the secondary skills. So your
Mhm.
recuperate and all of that your guard. Um, to me, that's what made PvP more fun to me because I used to do Frontlines every day because I was leveling every one of my characters, and I never find it that fun. And I didn't mind the PvP rotations, but they didn't feel super fun to me and super fast.
Gotcha.
Now it just feels infinitely. It feels like a different game, honestly, to me, in a good
I
way.
agree.
So do you think that with these PvP changes? Well, first off, what are your thoughts on the PvP skill changes? Do you find it too dumbed down, or do you think it's like just right, or do you think that there's something that they could do with it?
It's super fun. It's way more fun than it used to be. I think it's because just how just having so much unique stuff, like the unique limit breaks, just feels very different to what we were used to.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like it's more flashy, more fun to play. Every job feels pretty different, which wasn't really the case with Feast. Like the healers pretty much were just like, you just heal. But now like Sage feels like a DPS healer. Astra feels like a support. White Mage feels like an all arounder. Like it's a lot. They feel way more unique, which is better.
Scholar feels like I don't know what is a scholar like main healer in PvE. I'm just like I want to play scholar in CC, and I'm just like I don't feel like I could do much of anything as a scholar personally, but maybe I just haven't figured it out yet.
It's definitely on the lowest end of the healers, but it's like it's pretty much like support, but like with shields, and then you're
Mm-hmm.
whittling down your enemies with dots and heal
Yeah.
down. So your team has to hopefully take advantage of you doing that.
Yeah, it's just to me when you said white mage is like the all rounder. I mean, like, I was like white mage is like the god tier healer.
Yeah,
It
it's
feels like
it's here.
so. I think there's some balance that could be done there.
Yeah, right.
But so just overall, I mean, they feels more fun. Do you think that they're going to kind of just stay with this kind of seven like job skill, and then five kind of secondary skill, or I forget what they call them, but like the non-job skills, the like skills that everybody has.
Hmm.
Do you think they're going to stay with that, or do you think that they're going to iterate and add more skills, or do you think that they like the balance of the simplicity of having like six main skills and a limit break for
I
most classes?
uh I think they'll likely keep it and just like balance consistently. So for feasts, we had I think it was like 11 skills, so it was simplified as well. But this is even more simplified. But with feasts, what they did was they did remove skills a lot and then add another, like replace and rotate stuff. So I expect that to happen here, if they feel things are a little off balance or just to freshen up the meta. So that's
Gotcha.
that's good. And they did it fast. So like 6.0, 6.1 was like different, and then 6.11 was like a quick balance patch that they did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I noticed right away, like some of the classes that I didn't really enjoy playing before, I kind of instantly went, oh, like this feels better, or this feels a
Mhm.
little more nerf than it probably should have been from the beginning. Like the red mage's AOE silence just felt like a bit much for teams, at least the ranks that I was playing, because that would just, if you line someone up with that would just annihilate a team with that 3-second silence.
Gotcha. Yeah. Red Mage. I think the Red Mage nerf was deserved. Personally, it's
Yeah.
still very strong, but
Oh, I'm not
yeah.
saying it wasn't deserved. I'm just saying it was I noticed it, And then
Oh yeah.
with Monk, I feel like Monk got a little bit stronger this time around too. At least it feels that way. Like I can line up as I call it, the wombo combo, and as long as you can get like all the combo and the stun in and everything with a limit
Yeah.
break, you can pretty much
Nearly
100-0 somebody.
Yeah, you can. Some jobs like Black Mage, you straight up can do 100-0. Yeah, they buffed it. I think Monk is still like an A tier, personally though.
So let's talk about that. What do you think the best jobs in Crystalline Conflict are? And just overall, and then I'm going to ask you afterwards. Like we'll talk about like maybe best jobs for beginners who are maybe just jumping in.
So I think White Mage, as we said, is super strong, and the main thing comes from the limit break being so fast, and polymorph, the transform ability, miracle of nature. It's unpurifiable, so like it combos really well with like anything. You see someone stunned, and then you turn them into the little piggy, and then you kill them. So like it's very strong. White Mage is still strong. They nerfed it a little bit, like its bulkiness, but it's still pretty strong. The AoE stun is great. The limit break synergizes with like almost everyone. The shield break AoE. Um, Samurai, it's gonna still be strong because the insta kill with its limit break. So if you do Chi-10, the reflect, and someone hits the reflect, you can insta kill them with your limit break. That's still in the game. It's still pretty strong. It's a little bit more of a noob stomper tactic. Kind of people stop falling for it at the higher level, but just because it exists and that meta game of are they gonna reflect? Are they gonna limit break? It's still a strong job. And Ninja's another big one. Ninja requires good teammates, team play, but when they have that, they can like wipe out everyone with their executes. They can kill they can kill everyone if they're 50% HP or lower with their limit break, and they can chain it. So very strong.
Yeah, Ninja's one of those interesting ones where I want to say it feels like the most complex job, at least for me to play, because it's got all the different variations from the mudras that you can swap into and out constantly. So it's really like you have to balance, and some of them are just advanced versions of their original skills, but it feels the most complex because like, oh, I don't have 7 buttons to worry about. I have like 14 buttons to worry about. And all those cooldowns to manage and everything, can be kind of complex because some of them are kind of hidden behind the mudra cast.
Yeah, Ninja's interesting. It's fun though. I find it fun.
Yeah, it's one of the lesser melees that I played. I don't play much Reaper either. It's just funny because I really enjoy Reaper and PvE, but I feel like Reaper is so situational in its usage. I don't know if it's because I don't play it that much. If it's an ult or whatever causes the fear, I feel like that's very useful for getting people off a point. When you're right there on about to push the crystal in, it's I think very useful for that. But I just don't see the usefulness for Reaper beyond that specific ability compared to the other melee. What are your thoughts?
Agreed. Reaper's for sure one of the lowest tier, if not the lowest tier melee.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, it just doesn't do what the others do. Pretty much like you said, Samurai has the insta kill everyone. Ninja has the executes, trigger limit break, massive damage. Monk can single people out, and then Reaper's just like AoE fear, I guess.
Yeah. What about tanks? It seems like Warrior is the core meta for tank right now because of the AoE stun and the Scorpion grip and all of that. I know Dark Knight got a little bit of a nerf going from that 15 or 20 second their ultimate or their limit break, and then down to I think 10 now, which is
that was a buff. They went from 20 to 15, 20 seconds to 15.
Okay, that a nerf, right? Because it was longer before, right? At least it feels that way to me when I play Dark Knight.
It went from 20 seconds to 50 seconds, so it's a buff, I believe.
Oh, okay.
Shorter cooldown.
Okay.
On TBN.
Huh. Okay. Maybe I'm just tripping out and Not thinking. But what's the like? What role does Gunbreaker? Because I don't see a lot of people playing Gunbreaker. I don't see a lot of people playing Paladin. Like, what's the meta like in
Yeah.
the tank realm?
Yeah, so tanks, it's still kind of being like tested and developed, I would say, because it's only been a couple days of 6.11. But Gunbreaker is just like raw DPS. Like it's a damage dealer. It's closer to Dragoon than it's closer to Warrior in the way it plays. Just do a lot of damage. The Limit Breaker is a lot of damage. With the buffs they did, they made like Nebula, like the defensive cooldown, longer. So it can be played a little bulkier, and it's a little better. From what I've been asking people like every day, like what do they think about like the tier? Like, is it S tier, A tier, B tier? A lot of people are lean towards like A and B, and Warriors like S.
Gotcha.
Dark Knight. I haven't played that one still. I still have to play it, and not many people are playing it, so I can't give a solid answer. But again, that's another one I keep hearing as A or B. And then Paladin. Oh, Paladin's the one I did play. So I love Paladin. I love Paladin a lot. It's really
I feel like
fun.
there's a video essay coming up here. So let's go for it. Paladins.
It's so fun. I used to play Paladin and Feast, but it's just that the concept of it, like being a support where you like guardian people, you cover people so they can play more aggressive. It just doesn't work in a solo queue environment that well. Like you'll guardian someone and they'll run away. You guardian someone and then they use their guard and stuff like that, and it just makes it really awful to play in solo queue. That being said, in a light party environment, like with voice comms or like doing customs, I think it's much better played.
Do you think that they'll add a light party mode for this, like a ability to not solo queue for Crystalline Conflict?
So they kept the little PvP team feature around, and they removed Feast permanently. At least they said Feast is gone permanently. So assuming that they kept that around for a reason, I think maybe we'll have it at some point. But I think it's like far future, like 6.3 maybe.
Yeah.
I don't think 6.2.
Yeah, so we have the series, and I forget the exact roadmap. So the series is going to last through till 6.2 or halfway to 6.2, and then there's a new season every major patch, or how are they planning on balancing that out?
The series I forget, but the season I noticed this season 1 ends in 6.18.
Okay.
Yeah, and then the second season starts right away.
Gotcha. Okay.
And it's a short season because it ends at 6.2.
Yeah. So that'll be really, really quick.
Yeah.
Well, I won't have any problem because I blew through the whole leveling sphere, I guess, or the leveling path in like a week or 6 days or something like that. I was already capped, so or 5 days.
Yeah.
So I was a little nervous because I was like, oh goodness, am I gonna have to play every single day? And then I played so much that it didn't really matter, and I got through it very quick because I'm so used to like Fortnite Battle Pass, where if you don't pump any money into buying levels, you basically have to do your dailies every single day and keep up with your seasonal stuff. And as long as you do that, I mean, you can play one match a day, and so like 15 minutes or so, and max out your battle pass across a 2-month, 3-month season.
Gotcha.
But so I was thinking, like, is it going to be that aggressive? Or I was kind of thankful that it wasn't that much of a commitment, especially for those people that just want the cosmetics.
Yeah, it's pretty casual. I think Mr. Happy said it was like 30 to 40 hours to do the from the start of the battle pass to the end. So that's pretty casual since it lasts like a full patch.
Yeah. I'm sitting here, I'm like, did I play that much? I must have. So yeah, okay. So we talked about tanks, and then we kind of alluded at healers. White mage being the clear S tier of probably like almost every job, it feels like, in the game.
Yeah, they nerfed it, like they gave it 4 nerfs this patch, and it's still the king.
Yeah. Do you think that they're gonna rework? Sage is a funny one that I see I see some sages just do incredible damage and okay healing. Um,
Uh-huh.
do you think that they're gonna like rework Sage or Scholar? Astro feels, I would say, decent because it could do some big healing and it could do some big DPS depending on how it chooses to spend those secondary casts. But do you think that any of those are in line for a rework?
So in my opinion, White Mage is S, but I think the other three are actually like A tier. Like they're
Hmm.
solid. They're solid to play with, and I'm happy to have them on my team if people play it well. Sage, Sage often feels awful because people don't play it too well.
Mm.
It's the main thing. You have to keep Cardia on people all the time, and you'll notice a lot of times people forget to put it on, or they don't put it on optimal targets. But you really have to do that to increase your damage and shielding and stuff. The Sage is kind of funny because it's like almost entirely about its limit break. Um, it puts the barrier on the
Mm-hmm.
anywhere you want, and usually people put it on the crystal, and you pretty much force the enemy team to come inside the crystal and take a bunch of damage, and that's very powerful. Like I've
Yeah.
won and lost many games solely on Sage LB. Um, so I think I don't know if it needs a rework or anything. It's more like White Mage could use a tiny nerf. IMO.
Yeah. I had an incredible, speaking of healer limit breaks, an Astro blew their limit break and we were pushing like maybe, I don't know, like right around that last bend in the Charlian course. And
Mm-hmm.
the Astro popped their limit break, and I somehow managed to hit my Dragoon limit break at the exact same time and hit everyone for like 48k, and it was the
I see.
best feeling ever.
Do you remember if they had gave you balance too?
I don't remember. It was
Because that's
just
even spicier.
because I just remember like there was maybe I think 3 or 4 of their team members like on the enemy on the crystal, and they were just all gone in the matter of a second. It
Wow.
was crazy. Um,
Yeah.
so so we talked about kind of melee DPS. We talked about healers. What about like ranged and magical DPS? Where do you rank all of them?
Let's do casters first because
Okay.
I think they should be separated. Caster, Red Mage S, very bulky, high damage. They did nerf the damage in the 1 second silencing, but still hard to kill when they're in white shift. Very strong damage when they're in black shift. I'm sure you've noticed the meta's kind of turning into just like tunnel the Red Mage and force them into white shift, but still strong regardless of that. They buff Black Mage hardcore, like so much damage numbers more, and they can even like do a little bit AOE behind walls, which is kind of funny for like
Yeah.
stopping people from using elixirs. Um, from asking people, and from my opinion, I think it's still like an A tier, which is good. A is good.
Mm-hmm.
I think with the goal should be like have everything like A.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it's an A tier. And um Summoner, I didn't really play that much yet. But people are saying B, like it's B, but I don't really know for sure. The limit break is really good. Um, but they can be tunneled,
Yeah.
like they can be killed.
I've played of all the casters, I played summoner the most because I'm a summoner DPS. Like when I DPS, I'm a summoner main in PvE.
Mhm.
The thing that I always notice about summoner is it can do just tons and tons and tons of damage, but it has a very hard time closing on people. Yeah, if you can save up your fester stacks and like save all your cooldowns because it's very cooldown heavy because you kind of have to like sit back and wait for everything to come up. And even then it's really hard to kind of like wombo someone down like from full, even though like all that together does a ton of damage. So when I play summoner, it's always like I'm far and away like the highest amount of damage done, but
Uh-huh.
my number of kills isn't the highest because
That sounds right.
I
Yeah.
have to rely on other people to close out on those people once I kind of get them all clumped up. But I do love like Bahamut for the like the ability to push people off a point and keep that damage pressure up. But yeah, it just feels like if your teammate isn't able to like focus down like people who get low because all the burst damage you do, then you're kind of powerless, and when you have to
Right.
stand on a crystal, you're kind of powerless too, it feels
Yeah, I agree with that. And there's jobs that are like more pretty good at, closing off. Like ninja can go in, monk can go in, tanks can pretty much go in. So I can see how like they design a summoner to do like the overhead damage and everyone else does the follow-up damage and executes. But yeah, it makes it kind of stressful sometimes.
yeah,
It's just
because you're at the
people need to
with
do it.
and with solo queue, you're at the mercy of your teammates, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or if they just, if their team knows what they're doing, which I imagine, higher ranks, it gets even more to that level. If a dragoon and a monk or samurai just decide to go in and charge you, and blow through the front line to get to you while you're trying to stay back in LOS, you're just done for.
Yeah, the switching targets gets much better at the higher ranks.
Yeah. Yeah. So what about the physical ranged
It's
DPS?
at the range. Uh this is pretty easy. Bard is the best one. Yeah, Bard is the best one. It has a silence. The limit break is very powerful now. They buffed it from 5 to 10%. It also gives your teammates faster limit breaks, which is super, spicy if people are using LBs wisely. Just overall really solid job. And then after that would be I would say Bard's A tier, by the way. And then that would be
So not
Machinist after.
not S tier then for any of the fizz range then.
Nah, there.
Okay.
Nah. And then Machinist. Machinist is like a B tier in my opinion. Some people would disagree and say it's A tier. Like it's pretty solid. I feel like Machinist has a problem where you just don't do enough damage all the time. And wildfire is just too obvious. Like you put wildfire on someone, that's your biggest burst damage, wildfire, and then you do the analysis and to drill and stuff like that. But once you put wildfire on someone, they can just easily guard it if they're paying attention or fall back, go behind a wall, and that makes machinists a little of a struggle bus to play. The limit break is pretty good though. It's one of those execute jobs where it can finish people off. But I would rate it as a B tier overall.
Has the buff to their, because I saw that they buffed the shields from the little drone that you put out there to your teammates. I personally don't feel like that's made a huge difference, but I imagine it could in some situational crystal, like on crystal fights. But I don't feel like it's. I feel like it's relatively negligible in a grand scheme of like having to deal with the rotating abilities and the constant like cooldown ups and everything. It feels so random, and it's like, well, I need this ability, but I gotta wait 3 abilities till I get back to that ability.
Yeah, it does feel like that a little bit. The shield, I heard the shield is pretty good, but I don't feel like it's super impactful compared to like what other jobs have. So I agree with you there.
Yeah. What about Dancer?
Dancer's the worst.
Out of all, or out of just Fizz?
In my opinion, it's one of the worst jobs. And it has the similar Paladin problem where it's like, okay, you're reliant on your team to like do damage correctly because you're giving them dance partner, you're giving them all these buffs, you're giving them heals. But if they're not taking advantage of that, like you're not really performing your job right because of them. And that's in solo queue, that's just like the most stressful thing ever. The limit break, while it's beautiful and it's fun to charm people, it has a really long animation. It's so easy to just get stunned as soon as you click it, or even just like straight up get killed as you click it, and that's just waste of an LB. And that's pretty much it. It's good at surviving, and it does a little bit of like decent AoE damage, but like those two other problems just make it like one of the worst jobs to climb on, in my opinion. Yeah. Especially at the lower tiers. It's like who's gonna take advantage of your buffs?
Yeah, and the channeled AoE spin just does not feel fun because it just feels like as soon as you start doing that, everyone just goes, all right, you're dead. Because you got to get in so close compared to, and you don't have the survivability that some of the other like melee have, some of that damage reduction and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
So what I saw that you're playing Red Mage, and I think I saw you playing Monk once on stream as well.
Oh Lord,
So
I'm
what's
horrible at Monk.
Oh, are you?
Yeah.
You look pretty good at Monk at least when you're, because I think that was when I first like tuned in and checked out your stream while I think it was like this first or second day of Crystalline Conflict, so you're probably still figuring everything out. But
Yeah.
so what are your main jobs? Like, what are the ones that you go to, at the upper echelons?
Okay, so I played every job as of now. I played every job in 6.1, and then I played every job in 6.11, except for I still have to do Dark Knight and a couple others. But my main would definitely be Red Mage. Red Mage is what got me my highest ranking, which is like 2K points right now. And it's anytime I play, it's a pretty solid climb. I also climbed a white mage, so I should just say I have 4 characters in Crystal right now. But I didn't like choose a single job when I climb the Crystal. I always like rotate a little bit. But from what I can tell, red mage, white mage, bard are like the 3 that I usually have like solid climbs with, and like I just win streak hard, and I'm comfortable to play them at the highest ranks.
Yeah, that silence on Bard is just nice, because you're just like, you see someone low, you hit them with it, and you're like, you're dead. Because my team, especially when your teammates are right there chasing them, it's just such a nice like kill secure ability. Bard's actually the range that I enjoy playing the most out of all of them. So I just I can't figure out what I want to stick with, because I enjoy Warrior quite a bit. I enjoy Monk quite a bit. Samurai less so, now that it doesn't feel like it, less so that it doesn't feel like it could just stand there and take all the damage with that 50% damage reduction. Now it's like what, 25, and the stun's
25.
a second shorter, and it's still on a 20-second cooldown, whereas Monk's is on a like 15-second cooldown, I think. So to me, Monk just feels more like fun than Samurai. I enjoyed Dragoon quite a bit too, just because it's fun and flashy, and when you get those crazy AoE, like everyone stacks, and you get those, that's the best hero ball moments like that you can feel there. White Mage, I was playing it. That's what I pushed through like silver with, and pushed through pretty quick with, but I just don't enjoy playing it. It's just one of those ones where it's like, I recognize how good it is. I'm decent at it, but I don't want to play it.
I guarantee you, if you just stick to it, you would get to Crystal.
Probably. It's such a good job though. I actually weirdly enjoy it, because I didn't, because White Mage is so good, I didn't really mess around with the other healers. That I was really enjoying Astro a good bit too, because the thing with Astro is like, if people decide to tunnel you, it doesn't really have a lot of that escapability with the jumps and leaps and the instant cast cure 3s and the sheeps and all that different type of stuff. Astro just feels like, well, they're on me, so what am I going to do here? It doesn't feel like there's much escapability, but I do like, the thing I think I like about Astro better than White Mage is just having the instant cast heals rather than the cast time heals for your teammates. I feel like I could be much more effective as a healer that way. Whereas with White Mage, nothing infuriates me more than when I'm like casting a heal on someone and they die. And I'm like, well, that cast time was wasted, and I feel like I wasted like 2 seconds of time where I could have been doing something else. But maybe
that's valid.
Valid. Maybe I'm just not making the right plays. Who knows? So if you could pick a job that you just have fun with, like what job would be the one that like you enjoy playing the most, regardless of, if it's going to push you up the path of Crystal?
It probably is honestly just red mage. It's just fun, like shifting stances and jumping in and out. It's a lot of little decision making, and I love that. The best of it. Another job that's a lot of decision making would be probably Astro. Actually, like you have to make the decision if you're gonna like double this cast, like double the gravity. Are you gonna use your card right away? Are you gonna wait for it for LB to come up to link it together? Are you gonna use 2 heals or just single heal? Like it's pretty fun. I like Astro too.
Yeah, there's a lot of choices there. What about for beginners? So like if someone's, not tried Crystalline Conflict yet, which is hard to believe that if someone's listening to this, like they probably have tried Crystalline Conflict at this point. But if someone hasn't, tried Crystalline Conflict just yet, like what jobs would you recommend to beginners to be the first ones to kind of learn and grow with and try out?
I think the strongest jobs are actually like leaning towards the easier. So like
Mm.
samurai, especially in unranked casuals bronze, like samurai is not super hard to play. You just use your cast on the enemy, and then when you have LB ready, just use the deflect into LB, and you might wipe out the team and win. So it's a good job. And then white mage, yeah, it's pretty simple to understand. Use your LB often. Cure people when you can. Consistently use the cure 3, like you said. The gap close into cure 3. And yeah, I think those two are like the main ones that are like simple but also very strong.
Gotcha. So we kind of talked about Feast a good bit, and maybe it's not coming back. But you know, what about Frontlines? Like what role do you think Frontlines plays in the future of Final Fantasy 14 PvP? Is it still just the
Mhm.
excellent XP roulette for you while you're leveling, or do you think that there's a competitive mode potentially coming down the pike for Frontlines?
That's such a good question. So I used to love Frontlines a lot. That's like big part of my content as well. Like did Feast plus Frontlines plus Rival Wings. Um, Now that Crystalline Conflict is here, Frontlines has taken a massive dive for me. Haven't been enjoying it so much. I find it to be a little too chaotic with all the new limit breaks and just like insta dying if you go in for a second because of all the limit breaks. um, so it's hard to say. I know a lot of PvPers also think similar to me, where they think Frontlines is just kind of like a mess now. Um, but you can still enjoy it if you play with friends. I feel like if you play with friends and you're trying to do like some cheesy plays, like let's all go white mage and LB people at the same time, it can be pretty fun. Um, but the future for it, I don't know. I think Square Enix will keep balancing PvP around Crystalline Conflict. So I don't know how Frontlines is going to be other than just like a hop in, go with friends if you want to have fun. If you don't want to have fun, just go in solo and get some
Yeah.
EXP.
Do you like the size? So my last guest, Stouthelm, who does like lore content, was telling me like he actually really enjoys Frontlines, and me, I don't. I like the concept of Frontlines, but like Frontlines is just there's too many people. I feel like in Frontlines, like I feel like if there's no moment to be like an individual hero in Frontlines. It's all about following the wave, so to speak,
Right.
and when maybe I'm just doing the wrong things constantly, but I just always feel like I don't have play a big role like when I'm in a large group, you know, swarming someone, and I don't feel like I have an ability to kind of be useful on my own, like holding down a point or anything like that. So it always felt like Frontlines to me like would be better if it was like 8 versus 8 versus 8 instead of 24 versus 24 versus 24, because then I think there's a lot more decision making to be had about like how many people need to stay in guard at this point, because then 3 people who are decent could hold off against 5 or 6 people, if they're good and coordinated and everything.
Right.
um I don't know, do you ever think that Square Enix will go and say like, well, like maybe this is too many people in Frontlines and maybe we should cull down the number, to a lower number?
Honestly, if they're not gonna job balance
Hmm.
for Frontlines, which I don't think they should anyway, because Crystalline Conflict is new and fresh and fun,
Yeah.
um, that might be the only other option, right? Just to make it smaller scale. And it's not like the technology is not there because they've done it before.
Hmm.
Frontlines actually was 8v8v8, like you
Oh,
said.
was it?
Yeah.
Was this back? I'm learning stuff tonight.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Was this
This
back in
was
2.0 or 3.0?
three. Well, when it was released
Hmm.
until like 3.x something. Yeah. So the reason why they removed 8v8v8 Frontlines is because people would pre-made. We had pre-mades up to 8, and they would just like win every time, basically.
Hmm. It seems like you could grow an organic, community around that too, right? Like where you could have 8v8v8s, but and it all be pre-mades, and that seems like a
Awesome
fun
idea. Yes.
fun community thing,
All right. Yeah. Custom front lines. So that's something people always talk about. But yeah, just AV8 in general. I think it would work in current day. Why not? Like we have 4-man pre-mates,
Mm-hmm.
and they could probably carry, but like they're just part of the nature of the game anyway, right? Like the people who are gonna try hard are gonna try hard no matter what. So we should encourage people to try harder then, I would say, versus not have something.
Yeah. Yeah, PvP is such a funny thing because I was talking to V about it from Mom's Den, and we were talking about like, does PvP inherently like create some level of toxicity, in the community? And I saw like your toxicity like montage of like feast stuff on your YouTube channel. I was watching that, kind of cracking up with it because I mean, me coming from Warcraft, like so much over there is toxic. And one of the things like about 14 when I got here is that there's comparatively like I want to say it's like 90% less toxicity in 14 than it is in WoW. And PvP though, inherently competitive, makes people
Mhm.
get frustrated, makes people rage. Like you're very much dependent upon your teammates, which you are in the Savage
Yeah.
End content as well. And I wonder, has traditionally like the lack of emphasis in PvP kind of been like around like we need to protect the community and like make them feel, not have them get into these really
Uh-huh.
rage moments against their teammates. I don't know. What are your thoughts on like toxicity in PvP and what you've seen like doing Feast at the highest end and doing competitive PvP in 14?
I think so. I think that does have an impact because I don't know if you saw it, but Yoshi P put out a notification
Mm-hmm.
like the other day. So yeah, even Crystal Conflict is getting people to get a little upset with losing and stuff like that, and it does suck. But it's kind of like you said, it's like a mixed feeling thing because we know how 14 wants to be seen. It wants to be as something positive. It wants to be as something that can anyone can play casuals. But PvP inherently is competitive and can lead to like these salty, angry situations.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard for SE to balance. And even as me, as someone who streams the content, it's kind of hard to like make the judgment call of what's right. Um, in my opinion, I think SE does a good job already. Like we can't type in Crystal Conflict. Um,
Yeah.
Anytime you report something for harassment, they're pretty fast on that.
Mm-hmm.
People get banned for harassment, jailed for harassment easy. So I think SE does a good job. Um, it's hard to say, but I do wish people would just um, try and embrace that like anger is a thing. Like it's okay to be angry, but we don't want to go too far and like make people not want to play the game anymore.
Right.
Basically.
Right. Yeah, because I mean, to me, like some of the stuff that like I read about, like players in Crystalline Conflict doing to like, I don't know, I don't even want to call it harassment because it's really not even harassment, where they just go like good match over and over and over again. Like that to me is not harassment. That's just you getting tilted
Yeah.
and not focusing. And it makes me upset when that person is not trying. Like if you're
Uh
doing
huh.
that and you're mad and you're trying and you're at least, if you're carrying the team and everything, like, okay, I get it. You don't have to be aggressive to everybody else about like the fact that you're carrying the team, but at least you're still trying. The ones that get me are the ones that like, hit good match and then stand back on the point and
Oh,
just go,
that's just like straight up reportable, honestly.
yeah.
But it's bad when people do that anyway because you're just lowering the morale of the team, and then people start playing worse. So like, it's never a good idea to spam like that.
Yeah, no, and it's funny because a couple years back, like I ran a experiment on toxicity actually
Ooh.
in PvP games, and the experiment was I played Heroes of the Storm, so Blizzard's MOBA game, like back when it was still actually being supported and popular and everything. And I was a big fan of it. Played a ton of it. It was like my main game for a long time, and I wanted to see like how toxicity impacted like team ability and everything. So I literally played the same character every time, so as to not introduce any new variables from myself being in the game. And I would like record whether or not there was toxicity present in the matches to see like what the win-loss ratio was like when there was toxicity present and when there was. And turned out like my win percentage when there was no toxicity present was like 67%, something like that. And I played Raynor because he's like the character everybody gets at the beginning, and he's also considered like the most boring and middle of the road character out of all of them. And so as I, with the healer, like I could dominate a match and cause some of the imbalances there to happen. Because healing in that is very, very different compared to some of the other MOBAs. And the interesting thing was, I think it was like, even if, because I was trying to keep the numbers balanced in terms of like how often toxicity was present. Because sometimes it was organic. Sometimes I had to like inject a little toxicity into the match just because just to keep the numbers balanced. And the funniest thing is to inject toxicity, I typed the most benign thing possible in chat. All I typed was, "You guys stink." 3 words. It wasn't, this long stream of expletives or anything like that. It was the most like benign little bit of toxicity you could inject. And win percentages dropped by like 20 something percent when there was toxicity present.
I believe it.
And to me, like that's a better way to compete against the toxicity. Say like, hey, like when you become toxic, you actually will lose more often. It's not just you're toxic because you're losing. I've seen instances where in like Heroes of the Storm where you could be up like 5-7 levels on a team, and in comparison, like if I'll use a football analogy, that'd be like being up like, I don't know, 20 points in the fourth quarter, 24 points in the fourth quarter. Or in basketball, like being up 30 points in the fourth quarter, like something that's like near impossible to come back from. And I've seen it happen so many times where the team just goes, someone gets mad because someone, made a bad play or something very small. Someone gets tilted, and then the whole team falls apart from that and loses because of just that little bit of argument, because it takes the focus off the game.
It's rough. I play team games other than that, so like I play shooters, like I said, and like I have the ton of experience of playing Overwatch. Someone saying something, and then like everybody we just lose.
Yeah,
no longer can aim.
Yeah, well, because they're doing this. They're like going, I hate you. You're so bad.
Like when people are like using voice comm and they're talking, like I can't anymore. So like I just said that. I think the best thing we could do is, like you said, just like tell people, you're just making the game worse for yourself, and if people see it in game, just report it. That's the best we got. And
especially if someone, I've had, people, the old Xbox 360 days, like me playing Street Fighter 2 on the Xbox Live Arcade, if you remember those days. It's like the first time you could ever play Street Fighter 2 online. And I would, Honda, and I would just, like palm everybody to death. And this, I couldn't count the number of times where people, I got messages in the Xbox Live chat, those little 15-second, like, bad audio recordings of people saying, "I'm gonna kill you, I'm gonna kill your whole family," like all this other stuff. And I'm just like, you're really that mad about this? And the good thing is that I feel like we've come a long way from those days in terms of like a gaming community and society. But at the same time, it's like, okay, like we can't get rid of anger and frustration, but like, let's not take it to that level, please. Or especially if someone finds someone in game and then starts messaging them outside of a CC match. I haven't read any major reports about that, but I'm sure that it's starting to happen.
Easy report, TBH. SC will handle. Yeah, but the community overall, like you said, 14 PvP community, or people who play PvP, overall are like, just normal and not toxic. But it does happen from time to time.
Yeah. I mean, anger and frustration can get the best of all of us, I think, at some point. So what about rival wings? So I've done a couple Rival Wings matches. I think during like the Moogle Tombstone event, when people were actually playing it, I was like, oh, good, I get to try this, because otherwise the queues on Aether were just 30 plus minutes, and who knows if I could get in or not. What are your thoughts on not Crystalline Conflict, on Rival Wings moving forward? Like, do you think it's going to be better with all these PvP skill changes? Do you think that there's things that they could do in Rival Wings to improve it? Like, what's your general thoughts on Rival Wings?
So it makes a lot of sense that they would have to disable it to balance it when you think about it, because they have to adjust all the mech HPs and all the environment, like the tower HP, core HP, all that type of stuff. So it makes sense that would have to take time. I think it could be super fun, actually. Yeah. If since they're going to specifically balance around it, they have the option to like make it the way they want it. Like, except for that's different than Frontlines, because Frontlines, they just change the skills, and we play Frontlines as is, like without any changes to like the actual maps of Frontlines. But they're changing the map, and they can make it more balanced, more fun, and more synergized with the new job kits. Gotcha. So I have good hopes.
Yeah. So I've been running this idea by like almost most of my guests. So I apologize if you're listening to the show and this is like the fourth time you've had to hear me bring this idea. But since I have like the PvP master here, I'm definitely going to bring it up because I'm curious as to what your thoughts are. Do you play MOBAs at all?
So I played Heroes of the Storm, like you said, but just a little, not too long, not too much. I mean, not too much.
Okay.
I played it like when it came out, basically when they had like the Overwatch collab thingy, when Diva and Lucio was added to the game. I played Heroes of the Storm at that time.
Yeah, Lucio was great when they first added the game. Lucio's great in Overwatch too. He's my favorite character in both. But I have this idea for a 5v5, like traditional 3-lane MOBA PvP mode with waves of enemies. And one of the ideas, I forget who, I think it was V who gave me the idea, like maybe you could like change the like your creep waves with the minions that you have. So you just select which minion you own to be your creep waves on your team or something like that. Or like the mix of the 5 that you choose would be like the mix of creep waves. And 3 towers, or 3 lanes, 2 towers before you get to the main base. Just basically the standard MOBA mode. And then also, if have you ever played Paladins, the
I've seen it, never played it.
Game. So Paladins and Smite, the 2 high res like games, one's a Overwatch clone and one's a 3D MOBA. I feel like you could take like there's a upgrade system that's very simple in Paladins when you level up that Overwatch doesn't have, where you have you earn currency as you do stuff like points and like kills and stand on the point and everything. And throughout the match, you can choose like which of these 16 talents to build into, and then you can upgrade them at different levels. So you get to choose 1, or you get to choose up to 4 for the match, and then you get to upgrade them as the match continues to go on. And some of them are like life steal, a little bit of life steal, like when you deal damage. Some of it's like take a little bit less damage. Some of it's do a little more damage through shields. Like, it's a very simple, elegant system that I feel like could be the right like item buying thing, like the right progression path for this in this MOBA system. So you don't have to buy like all these crazy items like League or Dota or whatnot and try to like maximize all that stuff.
All right.
What are your thoughts? Think it could work, or you think it's like an awful idea?
do you think in a replacement of Rival Wings, or
no? I think as an additional mode. Maybe Rival Rings is kind of like the casual thing, but this is like a more competitive, mode, kind of like Crystalline Conflict.
Well, I'm down for anything personally. Anything let's do it. So I'm down for that. But Rival Wings is like the MOBA. So
I know. Something just feels a little bit off on it. And maybe it's just the number of people, maybe it's the 2 lanes, like probably. Maybe it's the robots, which is very different from like a traditional MOBA. I don't know, just something about it just feels a little bit off. I haven't done it enough to really make a full judgment on it, but the thing I think I like about MOBAs is the fact that, kind of like with Frontlines that I was suggesting earlier, you separate people out to 3 lanes, and now you've got, you got to make choices, like who's going to be, you're going to have a 2 people in this lane, 2 people in this lane, 1 person in this lane, like 1 person, maybe there's a jungle, I don't know, like 1 person juggling. Like what's your breakdown of your team comp? Like, do you have a, I don't know, like a Nova from Heroes of the Storm, like who's there just like sneaking around trying to get quick kills and stuff and assassinate people? Maybe that's your ninja, like in 14.
Yeah, I got you. I got you.
So like that way it's more like, all right, I'm in a lane against this character and I'm kind of just doing my own thing and we can see who's the better player, rather than like Rival Wings where it's like kind of gets into that same Frontlines thing where it's like, do I have much agency here? I know I do, but it doesn't feel that much like I have a lot of agency.
Yeah. Rivalries could be like what you said if people played it that way. Like 4 people go to the north lane, 4 people go to the south lane, 4 people go to the objective. But it's not played like that at all. Everyone just goes everywhere.
Yeah.
I forgot to say I do play Pokemon Unite. So I do have some MOBA experience actually now.
Yeah. I played the hell out of that one when it first came out. I kind of fell off of it.
Me too.
I should go back to it. I think I was having fun with it. It's a different kind of MOBA with like dunking points and stuff. It was fun.
Yeah, they added new characters still. But yeah, I think your idea like could work, and I do see the value in it because we don't have like real like 1v1 PvP in the game, and that could like be the solution to having it, fighting in lanes and stuff like that. So I don't think it's a horrible idea, and it's not totally like impossible. Like we don't know what they're gonna do. Like there should be new stuff after this, and when they say Rival Wings is being adjusted, we have no idea what that means. We assume it means just like changing the HP values, but it could legit mean like it's lower man. Why not?
Yeah. I don't think anyone was, like you were saying earlier, I don't think anyone expected like the PvP changes to be as wide sweeping as they were in terms of the skill design and everything. So who's to say Rival Wings could come back and be like a 5v5 3 lane thing with just the mechs and everything in it. And that would make me happy. I'm always down. That to me I think was the one thing, and that's why I'm like I was so stoked to get you on the show to talk about it, is like that was the one thing in 14 that was really missing for me, was like a little bit of PvP, a little bit of competitive stuff. And I got a little bit of that in Chocobo Racing when I was first doing that. But I was missing some of that, like competing against other players and testing my skill against them. And, the thing I like about PvP in 14 is like it's not gear dependent. You just have what you have. You got the health points you got. And it's just it's like a fighting game. It's like just you versus the other player. Like there's no... well, this person grinded out this much gear, and so they're going to have an inherent advantage against you, like some other MMOs. And I don't know. I just think the sky's the limit from this new foundation for PvP. I'm super excited about it.
I agree, and I'm excited too. I think so. It's hard to say what's going to happen in terms of community, because I'm sure you can tell, like it's a little less people are playing as they finish their battle pass, as they get crystal rank. So I am not sure how well the community is gonna like stick to this personally, but I'm trying my best to keep it, keep it going, keep it flowing. I think people like who create content around PvP help it a lot, like showcasing that it's fun, showcasing people that it's still active, doing community tournaments. These stuff really help, just like the fighting game community, basically. And I hope to see a lot more people like step up with that, at least.
Yeah, that's the secret sauce of like all tournament based type of stuff, like competitive scenes, is that it has to kind of grow organically. It can't be something that you force into existence, like an Overwatch League, or like a Heroes of the Dorm competition, or the HGC, the Hero Global Championship or whatever, Heroes Global Championship, where, you know, Blizzard just pumped so much money into that. And, you know, because they pumped so much money into it, there was so many expectations for how much money they would make from it and be profitable from it. And I just think that they were setting themselves up for a no-win scenario, because they go like, well, we're here. This is a huge esport now.
Yeah.
And it's like, you have to have that grassroots foundation to kind of build up to that point. Like, you know, like Evo was, from my understanding, was like, it grew as a very grassroots, like people enjoy playing fighting games, and that's why it's so big. And they kind of select the fighting games that, you know, are the ones that are the current ones that people are playing the most and that have the most interest in it. So it's very, you know, community driven, I think.
Yeah. I think it's a both thing. I do think Square Enix should like do stuff to help. Like they can why can't they sponsor tournaments? Like give us some monetization codes to give away. You know, they can showcase on their official stream, and can I say it? They have hinted to me personally that like they do want to do that, but I don't know if they will. Is the thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because, like, I'm trying to think of like Japanese companies that do a lot of, like, you know, tournament sponsorship stuff, and it's always like, I always think of Nintendo because I think of like the Smash scene, because I know a lot of people who are in that scene, and I know about a lot of the drama going back and forth between Nintendo and like the communities trying to build their own, you know, tournaments and their own scenes and everything. And being part Japanese myself, like, I'm familiar with like the business model of like control, like the keiretsu, like the controlling the supply chain and the messaging and everything. And I think it's difficult to kind of break out of that cultural mindset and kind of let it grow organically, because it's very uncertain. You don't know what it could turn into, and that could be a, you know, a dangerous or a bad thing if you're associated with something like that. But I think it's encouraging, because I think that, you know, Yoshi P is, if nothing, a man of the people.
Right. I agree.
And I think that if it can be a positive force, and I hope that you do get this like featurette and sponsorship. I think that, you know, just growing and working with community partners is something that's going to help this whole thing grow, and that'll hopefully give them more resources. And then once they get more resources, they can attribute that back to the game and build more modes and more stuff. And
I will say Square Enix is very, like, they do acknowledge like the PP community, like people do you know, care a lot. They even said it before, like there's been interviews where Yoshi is like, I know the PP community is hardcore and they want this. I'm like,
and it was super fun to see him play that match against the, you know, his PvP team and stuff on the live letter. That was so cool to see, knowing that he was probably going to get rolled in it.
I watched that like 7 times.
yeah his reactions were great. But I mean, it was such a great showcase because it was organic. It wasn't heavily produced. It wasn't like some big, you know, Michael Bay movie trailer. It was just like, hey, we're going to sit here and play a match of PvP or match of Crystalline Conflict and show you what it's like. And it's really nice.
Do you watch the official streams? Not the live letter, just like when the community teams, like the NA and EU community teams stream?
I try to. I haven't been able to keep up with it because work has kept me away from some of the stuff, like when it's actually streaming. But I do try to watch all the live letters and follow along with those. Actually, I have watched all the live letters for the last 6 months since I started this like crazy YouTube journey thing, which started off with like me being sad about quitting WoW and sad about the state of Blizzard, and then morphed into like, oh, I love 14 and like let's talk about this and everything. Nice. I'm trying to. It's funny because I was reading earlier today. I just did a quick Google of Popo Jagaimo and just wanted to see what popped up. And like one of the things was a Blizzard like forum thread, and someone had shared like one of my videos, and just the most like angry, like attacking me stuff, like about like how, and then also starting to attack like 14 players. And I'm like, whoa. Like I didn't log on or anything or community. I just read through some of the comments, and it was like, Yeah, I make fun of WoW mostly to deal with my own
Oh,
sadness and whatnot. But like, and I show comparisons between WoW and 14 just because I was very much in that like WoW is the only game for me like cycle, and I didn't think I could branch out and play different things. And I kind of say like I want to rescue other people who may not maybe playing WoW and just not having fun with it, but not feeling like they can leave.
uh-huh.
And but I do want WoW to be better. Like the WoW developers have been doing a lot of much better things over the last week, especially. They've been
That's,
talking with people in the community, doing less rehearsed stuff. I'm working on a video right now about like how PR and overproduction ruins like relationships between developers and gamers, and like Yoshi P is I think a model of that. Like look at a live letter. It's just a Zoom call, you know. And it's like a 6-hour Zoom call, and it's not overly produced. Like it's the camera that he's using is probably like worse than my camera that I have.
wow.
And but there's something about that feels real, because it is. And
Uh-huh.
look at like Blizzard's like Warcraft Dragonflight announcement a couple weeks ago, and I think the developers like tried their best during that, but it's like rehearsed and scripted and edited down to where, and it's got multiple camera angles and moving stuff, and people trying to feel like they're being natural while there's a bunch of cameras in their faces and swerving around, which it's hard for an actor to do, let alone a game developer without an acting background. When you got a camera like up in your face, or someone saying that sounded good, but could you do that laugh another time so we can take that as a B-roll and cut that in? It
Oh, it's
does.
not live?
No. It's
Oh.
streamed live, but it's not live. But over the last week, they've been doing a lot of live interviews with content creators, which is what they've
Oh, I saw one.
which is
I
what
saw
they've
one.
which is what they've needed to do for a long period of time. Be unscripted, take risks. If you get tough questions, answer them. Or if you can't answer them, say like we're sorry, and we'll think about it, but I don't really have an answer, for that right now. There's so many ways to do that to where it feels like you're interacting with a human being, not a corpo puppet PR, edited down video, or a Michael Bay trailer that everyone made fun of, like the last patch where it was like defy death. Like I'm like, what does that mean? Action shot, defy death. Like the 14 trailers just feel so different from that.
Yeah.
But the community over here has been amazing. It's been
Thanks.
an amazing, like, I guess it's been it's about 6 months now for me being on YouTube, and well, I think only about like 4 months for doing the podcast and stuff like that. But it's been so welcoming and so amazing that the people here, both in game and outside of game, are just wanting to help each other, and it's a breath of fresh air. And I hope that WoW can regain some of that feeling too, so that both
Yeah.
games can be great. But
Yeah, and while doing good helps 14 because they will be competitive with each other. So
yeah.
um, yeah, I have pretty much the same experience. Like the 14 creators are like almost all awesome. I've never had a bad experience with any of the creators. They'll support. They'll come on shows. They'll talk. They have passion for the game. It's awesome. Um, I do have like a little bit of bad experience with people in the PvP community, but it's mostly because for the longest time I was like the only person creating content around that, so people see me as like different than like not really their peers. I would see them as my peer because we're PvP players, but they wouldn't see me as their peer because I'm this streamer. And yeah, so that's a little bit of my like negativity towards the community, but overall 14 community is awesome.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry you've had bad experiences with the PvP community, but like, is it like a pressure for like you to be the spokesperson for like all
Yes.
PvP? And
Yes.
if you don't agree with what they say, then
Yes.
well,
Yes.
well,
Yes.
hopefully, I'm planning on doing a little more content for PvP. I've been working on that MOBA video for forever, but I've been really trying to like take a game dev approach to it and be like, how would I design all the systems that work in this? Because I really want to put that together, because I want Yoshi P and team to see it and take it and make it.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. Yeah. Now that PvP is more mainstream loved, I don't really have those issues
Well,
anymore,
that's good.
thankfully. Yeah, like there's other people who been streaming PvP like
Yeah.
as their main thing now. So it's no more pressure of me like being the only person having to say everything how like everyone feels, which is impossible. Like how can I like Feast players were different than frontline players, which is different than like the casual people who just do PvP for rewards. I can't speak for everyone. So now that this is more mainstream, it's much better.
Yeah, the parasocial relationships between like viewers and content creators is so strange sometimes.
It is.
And you know, I don't think it necessarily comes from a place of like vitriol or anger or whatever, but it's like this weird, you know, we're still human. Like we still have our
Yeah.
own opinions and thoughts and stuff, and like we want to I think most of us, because we're, you know, doing the content creation thing, like we want to create content that's entertaining and good and makes you smile and everything, but
Yeah.
you know, sometimes we've got our own takes on stuff too. We want to get out there and just see how people feel about it, you know.
Yeah, especially because my intent is very obvious. I always just want to see for 5 years. It's been 5 years now since I've been, doing the PvP streaming and supporting the community. I've always had the intent just to make PvP better, more fun, grow the community. So whenever I had those experiences of people saying like, "Oh, he shouldn't speak for us," or um, I've heard someone say that I use the community for my own gain before,
Hmm.
and I'm like, how can you even say that?
I don't know. I read a lot of horrible things said about me earlier today. So,
That's kind of why I shared it, because it's part of creating content where like
yeah.
no matter what you'll have people who will be against you.
I thought it was funny because one person thought I was I used like she her pronouns, and I'm like, no, I'm a guy who uses he him. Like, and it's funny because I put myself out there on a lot of content, so I'm like, you probably, you know, if you'd seen any other videos from me, but they're like, I don't watch anything that she creates. Like, she is the worst, and she has like
Wait, why did they do that?
I don't know, like. Because most of my like meme videos don't have me in it, so it's just like someone editing. It was just kind of funny to read. But let's see here. So I think we talked about all those different things. Like, I guess another cool thing to think about, like what games, like maybe not just for PvP, but for like PvE, since you have a lot of experience in other games too. What games do you think that like 14 should borrow from, or what things do you think that 14 should like borrow from other games and try to implement into 14 to make it a better, or not just a better, but like have more stuff to do, like more fun things to do? Like, what, you got any ideas for like other things that 14 should try out?
Well, Yoshi P kind of like with this update, he took inspiration from so much stuff. It's super obvious. Like he flat out said Splatoon, Apex Legends, and oh god, what was the other one? Fortnite was like his inspiration for Crystal Conflict and the 6.11 changes. I'm sorry, 6.1 changes, and you could totally see some Overwatch influences too. Obviously, like the push, and like Dragoon's ultimate being almost like Doomfist ultimate, where they go up and then land.
Yeah.
So I don't know from other games, but in general, the thing I could see next is like probably a capture the flag type mode, maybe. And I'm actually like super. You got me convinced in like MOBAs being better, having a better MOBA experience of like having 1v1s, because we don't have that. We have dueling in the dueling circle and the Wolves and Pier, but that's legit nothing.
Yeah.
And it's kind of bad because the latency in the Wolves and Pier is pretty bad. But if we can have like a little 1v1 experience, that would be great. Might be hard to balance though.
Yeah.
Maybe.
That's my fear, is that like, you know, balancing in a 5v5 setting is very different than balancing in a 1v1 setting. Because like I was on Monk and trying to like 1v1 an Astro, like while they were off on their own, and I was just trying to pressure them off the rest of the team to keep them from healing and doing all that. And I'm like, I've got this Astrologian, I've got him. I like, there's no way that he's gonna, like, I'm gonna get him eventually. And oh my goodness, just kept healing and healing because so he just stood there and just soaked up everything that I threw at him. And I think did they get a I think they got a timely guard off, so I didn't do as much damage to them on my ult. And eventually I just gave up and I was like, well, I'm not gonna 1v1 this Astro down. So
Yeah.
but they weren't gonna 1v1 me down either. So maybe there's some balancing problems with like a 1v1 PvP mode, even though I would like to see one.
Well, like you said, MOBA have lanes, and at least from as a Pokemon Unite player, I know that like the way you play a MOBA is if someone is struggling in a lane, you go help them.
Yeah.
Yeah, so could work maybe.
Yeah. Well, what I mean is like a 1v1 arena, like you versus another person in like the Wolf's Den pier, but like in an instance zone. But I feel like that would be a fun mode if you didn't take it super seriously, you know, like where almost like where you could have like a fighting game lobby, you know, where like you could have all queue in and maybe there's like, I don't know, 16 people or 8 people queued in and like you fight and it's just kind of like King of the Hill. And
This is sounding Lost Ark. Have you played Lost Ark PvP before?
no, I haven't.
Lost Ark has a eliminations mode where people go 1v1, and then when one person died, the next teammate goes in.
Oh, nice.
It goes like that until the team is done.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds fun. I fell off a Lost Ark. I played a good bit of it. You know, I got to like the first major city when like all the systems start to open up for you and everything. I think they give you like your own like stronghold or whatever it's called, like your own like little, like island and everything. And it was just like, here's all these like systems. And I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to get into this. And then it was like, I don't know if I want to do the microtransaction stuff. And I just kind of fell out of it. Like I enjoyed it while I played it, but not as much to keep me playing it, I guess.
That's exactly when you unlock PvP though.
Yeah, I know. I think I unlocked it. I just never tried it. Maybe I should log in and just give it a shot and see if so is PvP in that game is like, does it gear dependent or is it just?
No, it's like 14 where
okay, good.
Everyone's equalized. Yeah, you can just like hop in and there's casual, there's ranked, and there's the 1v1 mode I was talking about.
Maybe I should give it a shot because I think I would enjoy that.
I would. I think it's pretty fun. So. It's a bit more grindy. Well, it's hard to say now because honestly, we didn't talk about Crystal Conflict ranking.
Yeah. Let's talk about it.
It's super grindy.
Yeah.
Like if people have like legit like 8K points, 7K points at the top 100 leaderboard, that's like 70 matches, 80 matches additional to getting Crystal. Feast was not like that. Feast, the points would be like at the top of the leaderboard at the end of the season, people would be at like 2.5K. You get 25 per match per win. So that's just a lot less matches than it would be to get 77K points. And we're only on week 2. Who knows how high that's gonna go? Is it gonna go to 10K points? Is it gonna go to what? That's part of the reason why I've been like playing alts a lot versus just hard grinding one character.
Gotcha.
Grindy.
Yeah. So do you think? I mean, what do you think could be better about like the ultra high end? Like, what do you think that they could do differently aside from just like grinding points for ranks? Do you think that they should have like your top 100 player like tournament, or they should have like teams that could form up at that upper echelon to have some type of like, I don't know, round robin tournament type of thing and see how that goes? Like, what do you think they could do differently aside from it just being a point game, like a point grind and who has the most points?
So they've done that what you said exactly before. We had a season for the FRC, which was the Feach Regional Championship tournament. So all we had to do was play as a team, and then we get on the leaderboard, gain our points, and then the people who were placed top did enter the tournament and actually fought it out for rank 1.
Gotcha.
I don't think that can happen with this because it's a solo queue experience, obviously. But what I think they can do is just fix the system a little bit so it's not so high end of matches. Feast system I think was totally fine, where we got 25 points per win, 25 minus for lose, and as you get higher, you start gaining less. So you start getting 20 per win, but 25 per loss still, and that makes the points like there's going to be a cap because unless you're like 100% win rate, you're gonna like cap off at some point and not gain so much points, and
Mhm.
everyone else can like catch up to you. But this feels like very, very hard to catch up with the top right now.
Yeah.
That makes it boring for me because I love grinding rank games. Every game we mention, I pretty much grind rank in. But this one is like 70 wins.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I think that's good feedback, right? Like that it might be too prohibitive, right, to keep grinding. And then, you know, from what I've heard, like with some of the win trading stuff,
Yeah, exactly.
that kind of ruins, I think, you know, people at that at upper echelons motivation to keep going when people can
Right.
just win trade.
Right.
And I'm sure that they're probably going to do something about that. I don't know how they prove it necessarily, aside from like just the frequency of how often you win, like versus how often you lose, like versus streaks and all that type of stuff, versus what the I guess they could look at the match logs, right, and see like what type of
Well,
damage is
yeah.
being done.
Because the way people win trade is they queue like a certain job versus their
Mhm,
friend or alt on the same job, and the alt rolls for them.
mhm,
So that's very loggable. If SC wants to go that way, and they've done it before. People have win traded in Feast and they got banned or
mhm.
removed from the leaderboard. So could happen, but it takes a lot of reporting, and
Yeah,
we'll just have to hope that they do that for here. Because right now, as of like today, the rank 1 on Aether is a win trader.
yeah, which is a bummer. I mean, that doesn't make it good for anybody, I don't think. You know, even
Right.
at the lower echelons, because then you're like, oh well, if someone could just cheat their way all the way to the top, then it doesn't feel like me grinding it out and trying to earn it. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it lessens that experience, even for someone in silver or gold like me.
Yeah.
That I'm hoping I can bust out of gold at some point. So,
I mean, if you want, like, you could just send me gameplay and I'll like review it.
all right,
I do that for people all the time.
awesome. I might, once I figure out like what I want to like
Yeah,
main.
I need a job first.
Yeah. I don't want to send you like, well, here's my monk gameplay and here's my dragoon gameplay and
Okay,
here's
don't do monk because I'm bad at monk.
so like, yeah, I won't do that, but I appreciate the offer nonetheless. Um, so yeah, I think we talked about that. What's my other note here? I had notes about lore and everything, but I don't want to keep you here like all evening. Like talk about the story of 14 and the lore and everything. But so what else do you enjoy? Like as a kind of last topic for the show, like what else do you enjoy doing in 14? Like when you're not PvPing, like are you an MSQ Andy? Or are you like, do you enjoy chocobo racing? Like are you a gold saucer hound? Like what's the housing addict? Like what is it that
uh,
like when Brian Ricardo is not PvPing, like what's Brian Ricardo doing in game?
so yeah, I'm pretty much an overall all around player. I have like I'm like top 30 achievement points on my server. Like I'm an achievement hunter a little bit. I do love the story. I started loving the story since Shadowbringers, which is you know, not super long ago, but like since
Mhm.
Shadowbringers and this expansion, I really enjoyed the story. I do raid, but casually, like pug raid. Um, so for this tier, I haven't gone super far. I've only gone to I completed P2S, but I'm gonna do P3S eventually. um, yeah, I overall try to enjoy the game. Because of so much PvP content creating and trying to keep up with the ranks, I don't have super much time to do like all the other things, but I do try to enjoy all. And as for chocobo racing, I do have like a maxed out chocobo.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
I haven't got
and
there yet, but I'm working my way there. So
yeah, I did that really fast. It's a blue chocobo named Ice Queen, and I use her for MGP every week.
nice. Izumo is the name. I don't know. I just liked it. I felt like going with a French first name and a Japanese last name, like for like the chocobos. So like all of mine are like Bo, Bell, Rue. Like first name, they're all like a French first name and a Japanese last name. I don't know, probably because they use pawn for bread over there. I mean, that's what made me think of it. But so yeah. So look, what's I guess just really quick story about like what's your favorite expansion in terms of like story and like who's your favorite character, like maybe both villain and hero. Like Like, what are the memorable moments in like the 14 lore that stick out to you? By the way, it's semi spoiler warning, or I guess spoiler warning for
Oh.
anybody who hasn't finished the MSQ. We're not talking 6.1 because Brian hasn't finished it yet, but
Yeah.
like what's your like most memorable like moments in 14, and like which characters do you love the most?
Well, honestly, this expansion was probably the best for me. I know Shadowbringers was great, but the way they tied up the story was something I really wanted to see happen. And um, let's just talk about the Scions. I really like Alisaie's attitude. I like her, I like the way she behaves. Um, and for villain Emmett, for sure, Emmett's a great villain, the best villain in this game, in my opinion. What about you?
Oh, people have heard me say, like, Emmett to me is the greatest. I actually watched Stouthelm, who's another friend of the show, was my last guest. He just did a video today. If you haven't seen it, check out Stouthelm's channel, because he does lore content for 14. He just did a video about like why Emmett's the best villain. And I said, Emmett's not just the best villain in 14 or anything. Emmett's the best villain in anything ever. Just change the title, please. Because to me, Emmett is just the perfect villain in a lot of ways. I mean, he's a person who's not the villain of his own story, which to me very much gives that Lex Luthor feel of like Lex Luthor versus Superman. That's why I find Lex Luthor so compelling, is that he's not a villain in his own mind. Yes, there's incarnations of Lex Luthor that certainly are like villainous or swindlers, like especially from the movies and stuff. But like if you look at Lex Luthor, that like the character and the way that I like to interpret him is that he's someone who's looking at Superman like a threat, and he's like, yes, he's doing good, but can we always trust him? Like, it's kind of like that same Batman contingency plan type of thing.
Yeah.
And he does bad things, and he does things that are misguided, but he's also feels like he's the hero of his own story. And that's what I think makes Emmett so compelling. That and his sass and his attitude and his style and flair, it like makes Emmett just, he's a genocidal maniac that somehow you can go like, oh, but I like you for some reason, and it's just such an amazing dichotomy and such amazing character development that, I thought his character development through Shadowbringers was, perfection. Like middle of Stormblood, I guess, to Shadowbringers was like just perfection. And like, why would you feel like you need to revisit that in Endwalker? And then when they did, it's like, it made it better. Everything added to Emmett and made it better. And Hith, made Hith being kind of a, letting you see the softer side of Emmett too, just made Emmett that much more compelling too, because, you got to see Hith was like your, like, hold up your little magic glass and be like, Emmett is a lot of anger and a lot of sass on the outside, but on the inside and deep down, he's a really good person. And he doesn't let people get close to him, but I'm going to show you who the real Emmett is. And that's what I think makes him an amazing character.
Yeah.
For Scions, it's it's Alfie and Alisaie for the Scions.
Oh.
Because like the two of them together just are great. I think I got to go with Allie now because Beth Ann did that video for me. The voice actress, or the English voice actress for Allie, did the video for me. Shameless plug, check that out if you haven't just yet. For anyone listening. And she's Beth Ann's such a sweet person. She's an amazing person. So like knowing Beth Ann a little bit behind the scenes and interacting with her, like that makes me love Alisaie all the more. But I mean, I love the moment. I feel like some people don't love the moment, but I love the moment that Alisaie like puts Xenos in his place.
Oh my God, that changed everything in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like that changed his mentality. Like he might have not thought about like helping us basically because of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, the character development from like ARR to endwalker for her and all of them, but for her and Alfino was like major.
I mean, Alfino went from the journey of being like the kid. I hated that kid. I've said this a million times, but like
He was supposed to be snobby and annoying.
Yeah. And then they nailed that in ARR. And then just the the deconstruction of Alfino for the next, like, I would say deconstruction, and then finally in like Endwalker, the rebuilding of Alfino into a competent leader and into someone who learned from all of his mistakes. And yes, he learned, in Dragon or in Heavensward and didn't really have, I don't think, a ton to do in Stormblood. And he didn't have as much growth as I would say Allie did in Shadowbringers. But then Allie wasn't as present in the story as much early on as he was. But, to basically take someone who is snobby and all that, beat him down to the ground, make him the butt of a bunch of jokes, and have him still persevere and grow into a person that his father, and obviously his mom was always proud of him, but a person that his father could be proud of, and Allie too, was a nice emotional culmination, because not only did Alfie prove himself worthy, but he proved like his harshest critic that he was worthy, which was his father. And I think that that's a really powerful journey,
Very relatable to for people, right?
Yeah. Everybody loves Graha. I know everyone loves Graha, so like I love all the Scions.
Yeah, I like all of them too.
The funny, the two I throw the most shade at, like I was doing a little bit of this on the live stream, but like the two I throw the most shade at, where I'm like, oh, like I gotta have you in my trust, or like can I have them instead? Is Y'shtola and Urianger. Like they're the two that I like the least, honestly. I still love them, but like they're the two that I like the least, just because I don't know, Urianger is just like constantly like verbally flexing, and Y'shtola, I'm just like, soften up a little, like, just, I mean, I know you got an attitude, and you're certainly Master Matoya's like pupil, but then I'm like, if I want the attitude, I'll just go to Master Matoya, because like I love Master Matoya, like the actual Master Matoya, so much. I wish she would show up more in the story. She's like a beacon of light every time I see her.
I like Y'shtola, like my second favorite. She's I do like the attitude. I like people who can like speak their their mind, and she's a character that's like that. So I like her a lot. Thancred is probably my least. Like I don't really think of him that much.
You're not alone in that. Like Stouthelm was talking about how he doesn't like Thancred that much either. And to me, I think I have a soft place for Thancred, because not Stormblood, and not like, well, he wasn't really in Heavensward much, but not ARR Thancred. But I think the turning point for me with Thancred was Shadowbringers, like, because Reen made Thancred a better character. And as someone who has been the beneficiary of a like strong mentor figure in their life, like to have like that Thancred Reen relationship there, it reminds me so much of my actual life, that I bawl every time like I watch that goodbye to the first and goodbye to the Reen cinematic, and like the point where he finally tells her like, I'm proud of you, like I lose it every time. So
that was his expansion for sure. Like, but other than that, like it's hard to think about him, at least for me. Like where else is he like done a lot?
Yeah. I mean, he has that nice moment when you're in Charlene at the end of 6. Or near the end of 6.0, where like you and Y'shtola and him and Urianger are having lunch on the little restaurant there in Charlene, and he's just kind of reflecting on his journey, and it's like, yeah, you've grown a lot too, but yeah, I mean, I don't know, I think I just like him, right? Like he's just a good dude, and I think it shows in that scene with Meteon and the ship. like when she first encounters you when you're on your way to
Yeah,
Ultima Thule, and it's
he's the
him,
first one.
and it's him that's the one that's standing up for the rest of the group first. Just like it's him that busts through that portal when you're fighting Emmett, and styles on Emmett's wings and throws the white aura sight at him. I don't know. I just it's like that's the dude you want to have your back, even though he's not the smartest, even though he's not the most useful character all the time. He's the one you want to have your back in any type of fight. And I think that's why I like Thancred so much. But who's your least favorite character or least favorite Scion?
It is him.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it is him, but it's not because he's bad or anything. It's just that I think of him the least, basically. Because like I feel like Shadowbringers, he did a ton, and then like the other expansions, I can't really think of like how much was he involved compared to the others. So that's the only reason. It's just less thinking.
Yeah. What about villains? Like, what's the least compelling villain arc for you? Emmett's like I think everyone's number one. I heard just a couple people say like Meteon was a really great villain too, but when I say villain, like Meteon's a different kind of villain. But
not sure. I mean, some people say Meteon was kind of just like forced in at the end there to be the final boss. I don't think so though. I think it made sense for how the story was going. Can't think of a horrible villain though. Do you have one? Because I like oh my god, what is his name? I'm blanking right now. The guy we fight at the end of 6.0. Blonde.
Oh, Xenos.
Xenos, yes.
Yeah.
I like Xenos. Like I didn't have a problem with Xenos.
Yeah, like Xenos to me, it's just like it's like kind of Vegeta. Like is the way I always kind of like talk about Xenos. It's like he thinks you're your friend. Like he just wants to fight you, but he wants to be better than you, and like all this. I mean, it just I don't know. He's a different type of villain than all the rest. So
in the other expansions, he was like straight up villain. I would say in Stormblood especially. But yeah, in the end, he was like more like rival leaning.
I think the way that his story concluded in Stormblood was probably like the worst of all of them, in terms of just like satisfactory payoff, because you fight him in a dungeon and then you don't really fight him. You fight him as a primal, you fight him as Shinryu, and it just doesn't really feel like you're fighting him. And then he takes his own life, and it's just kind of like, okay. I think the conclusion in Endwalker did him right. Like that's the way that it kind of should have went down in the first place. So I think that they redeemed him as a character, but
yeah, I agree.
I mean, I think Nidhogg is an amazing villain. I like the Varys character because I think that he's what you would expect that emperor of that nation to be. And, him getting turned into anima is a horrifying, situation. And I thought it was the perfect amount of macabre and scary and like grotesque and everything, like to have his son transform him into a primal that just tempers people because they don't have a religion and their religion is their government and all that type of stuff, like was pretty frightening. But gosh, bad villain. This might be slightly unpopular, but I don't find the Allegan Empire incredibly compelling, just personally. I know it's a big part of the history of the lore of the world, and I respect that. But in going through the Crystal Tower and, even like the World of Darkness stuff with the Cloud of Darkness and all that, I feel so disconnected from it. Like it feels so... Yeah, like Emperor Zandy is this guy like who couldn't have it all, so he's like, all right, let it all burn then, and he just doesn't feel super compelling. Like I find La Habrea, even in his like mustache twirling, like, and even Nabrialis is like mustache twirling Asian. I feel like both of them were more compelling than like the Allegan Empire stuff.
I can agree to that. Yeah, like I said, I kind of got into lore as we got into Shadowbringers. So like the older stuff kind of was a bit of a cutscene skipper, but yeah, I do know like it was kind of just like bad villain defeat him back then.
Yeah. Well, if you could ask Yoshi P and team, this will be our last question, but if you could ask Yoshi P and team for any feature in Final Fantasy XIV or any change to the game, be it PvP, PvE, Gold Saucer, UI change, anything, like what would be the one thing that you would want Yoshi P and team to do?
Yeah,
or add to the game.
Of course, it's PvP related.
I would expect nothing less.
I want to see PvP continue success, and I think a big part of that is them dedicating more to it, and that has to be done through moderation and communication. So, tell us when you're gonna do changes or what the roadmap would be for changes would be helpful. And like I said, moderating. So banning the cheaters, letting us know even that like you plan to ban the cheaters or do something about it would be just at the top priority for keeping PvP good for me.
Yeah, I think that's communication's key on everything, and I think Yoshi P and his team generally do an amazing job at being open and honest with the community and being real with us.
Yeah, I was so shocked about the toxic message that he did. I was not expecting that. So that's a good showcasing, at least, that they're having in their mind to communicate about PvP stuff.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's part of being a leader, right? Like when you're a leader, you have to communicate. If you're just this mysterious force making decisions without the communication, then you're not a leader of a community in a game. You're, I don't know, a faceless Asian making decisions from behind the scene. And I think I don't know, have you seen that clip of Soken doing the ha 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 I'm Asian thing?
Yeah, I saw it.
I don't know. I have to figure out something to do with that. It's a meme in and of itself, but I have to figure out something to do with that because it's amazing. Well, thanks so much for being on the Popoto Pub, Brian Ricardo, on my 10th episode. So it feels like an anniversary for the show now. You want to plug all your channels and social for anyone who may not have heard of you before?
Sure. So my main content is on Twitch. I stream like 30 to 40 hours a week. It's just twitch.tv/Brian Ricardo. I do have two YouTube channels. My main one is youtube.com/Brian Ricardo. That's mostly for PvP content in 14. Haven't updated it for this current patch yet, but my next video is probably going to be a tier list in regards to Crystal Conflict. And my second YouTube channel is Brian.com. I'm sorry. YouTube.com.
You own Brian.com. I say you could probably get rich off that and sell that domain to whoever really, really wants it.
That's so funny. YouTube.com/Brian Ricardo Shorts, where I post shorts videos. It's all stuff from the stream. So there's other games on there. There's fighting game clips, Genshin Impact, Crystal Conflict, everything.
Nice. Well, thanks again so much for being here on the show, and for all you listening at home. If you're finding me through Spotify or Apple Podcasts, or Stitcher Radio, anywhere where podcasts are found, I also have a YouTube channel. It's under Popo Jagaimo. Do memes, clips, commentary, all kinds of stuff there. Interviews with potential Final Fantasy XIV cast members. Have my first one up with Beth Ann Walker, who I mentioned is the voice of Alize. Planning on doing many more here in the summer months, which should be super exciting. And yeah, wherever you are in the world right now listening to us, thanks for making us part of your day. And I appreciate you. So lolly ho, everyone. And thanks for listening to the 10th episode of the Popoto Pub Final Fantasy XIV podcast. Peace out.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Popoto Pub. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe for more episodes. Take care, everyone, and peace out.